I never imagined that buying a quiet slice of land far away from everything would spiral into the most exhausting legal nightmare of my life. Yet somehow, that's exactly what happened. And it all began because one woman decided she had authority over a neighborhood she didn't legally control. Let me rewind a bit. My name is Daniel Harper. I'm 42, divorced, work remotely in software support, and for most of my adult years, I wanted one thing above all else: a place where no one could tell me how to live. No dogs barking at 2 a.m. No passive-aggressive HOA emails about grass length. No neighbor pounding on my door because my trash bin was visible from the road. Just quiet. So about 3 years ago, after saving for almost 10 years straight, I finally bought a small piece of land on the edge of a development called Willow Creek Estates. It was roughly 2 acres, heavily wooded, a little rough around the edges, nothing luxurious. Most importantly, it sat just outside the HOA boundary. That detail would end up meaning everything. At the time, though, all I saw was possibility. Peaceful mornings with coffee on a wooden porch, slow weekends fishing, a modest cabin where I could disconnect from emails, Zoom meetings, and the nonstop buzz of modern life. Nothing flashy, just a simple one-bedroom cabin. I hired a local contractor named Mike. Solid guy, gray beard, constant coffee breath, and always wearing the same flannel shirt like it was glued to him. On the first day, we walked the property together. He smiled and said, "You know you hit the jackpot, right? Nobody messes with you out here." I laughed and told him that was the whole point. Turns out, we were both very wrong. Construction kicked off in early spring. We cleared brush, poured the foundation, started framing. The days were quiet. Birds chirping, wind moving through the trees, distant traffic if you really focused. Then about a week in, I noticed a woman standing near the property line. She wasn't trespassing exactly. She stood right where the paved road ended and my dirt driveway began. Arms folded, sunglasses on, staring at the site like I'd landed a UFO in her backyard. I waved. She didn't respond. Instead, she pulled out her phone and started snapping photos. Click, click, click. Mike leaned toward me and muttered, "You know her?" I shook my head. He shrugged. "She's got a look about her." That was the first time I ever saw Lorraine Whitmore, president of the Willow Creek Estates HOA, self-declared ruler of 27 homes, and someone with a dangerously fragile need for control. I didn't know that yet. A few days later, the first letter arrived. White envelope. Official-looking HOA logo stamped in the corner. Bold heading. Notice of noncompliance. I opened it in my kitchen, still in sweatpants, coffee cooling untouched on the counter. The letter claimed I was performing unauthorized construction, that I was required to submit architectural plans, that I owed initial fees, and that failure to comply would lead to penalties. I read it twice, then laughed out loud. First of all, I wasn't part of their HOA. I never signed anything, never agreed to anything. My realtor had made that crystal clear. This land was outside their authority. I figured it was a clerical mistake. Wrong address, wrong parcel. I tossed it into a drawer and forgot about it, until the second letter arrived, then the third, then one sent certified, then a notice stapled to a wooden post by my driveway. Unauthorized development, community violation, immediate action required. That's when things started to feel off. Not fear yet, just confusion mixed with irritation. So I called the HOA office. A woman answered, her voice sharp and impatient. "Willow Creek Estates." Brenda speaking. I explained, "Hi, my name is Daniel Harper. I've been receiving letters about construction, but I'm not part of your HOA." Pause. Keyboard clicking. More clicking. Then one moment. The line clicked, and a new voice came on, slow, smooth, confident. "This is Lorraine Whitmore." Even over the phone, I could tell she was used to people doing what she said. I told her, "Ms. Whitmore, I think there's been a mistake. My property isn't within your HOA." She replied instantly, "Yes, it is." "No, it isn't," I said. "Yes, it is." I blinked. "My deed says otherwise." She answered, "Our community considers your land part of the neighborhood." I let out a small laugh. With respect, that's not how property law works. Silence. Then she said, "If you plan to live near our residence, you will follow our standards." Something in her voice made my stomach knot. This wasn't about documents. It was about dominance. I told her I'd follow county regulations, but I wasn't joining the HOA. Her tone dropped cold. "We'll see about that." Click. She hung up. For the first time since buying the land, I felt unsettled, like I'd unknowingly stepped on a landmine. Over the next month, everything escalated. More letters, fines for violations that never happened, complaints about dust, noise, visual disruption. One evening, a retired neighbor named Frank wandered over and said quietly, "Lorraine doesn't like outsiders." "Outsiders?" I asked. He nodded. "She expects everyone around here to fall in line." I joked. "Smile and obey, huh?" He didn't smile back. Then came the envelope that changed everything. Thick paper. Court seal. Notice of civil action. Lorraine was suing me, demanding I be forced into the HOA, demanding back fees, demanding compliance, accusing me of damaging community harmony. I sat on my couch staring at the paperwork, heart pounding. This wasn't just irritating anymore. This was war, and I had no idea how extreme she was willing to get. I remember sitting on my couch that night, lawsuit documents spread across the coffee table like some kind of twisted punchline, my phone vibrating nonstop with unread emails, construction bills, bank alerts, and now this. A lawsuit over a cabin, on land she didn't even own. I kept reading the same paragraph over and over, convinced my brain was malfunctioning. Petitioner seeks immediate court intervention. Compel compliance. Mandatory association membership. It felt unreal, like I'd accidentally stepped into the middle of someone else's terrible TV drama. I called my sister first. She listened in silence, then finally said, "Dan, are you sure this is legit?" I sighed. I wish it wasn't. Then I called Mike. He let out a long, low whistle. "Man," he said, "she's gone nuclear." Nuclear. That word stuck with me. By midnight, I knew I couldn't pretend this would just go away. So the next morning, I did something I'd never done before. I hired a lawyer. His name was Thomas Reed. Late 50s. Calm voice. Wire-rimmed glasses. The kind of man who looked like he'd spent his entire career cleaning up messes created by people like Lorraine. When I walked into his office, clutching my folder like a nervous kid called into principal's office, he smiled politely. "All right," he said, "let's see what trouble you found." I laid everything out. Deeds, maps, letters, emails, photos. He went through it all slowly. No interruptions. No rushing. Just page after page. Finally, he leaned back and said, "Well, this is absurd." I laughed nervously. "That's good, right?" He nodded. "It is. But absurd cases still cost time and money." He tapped the map. "Your land is clearly outside their boundary. County records, zoning, everything checks out." I leaned forward. "So she doesn't have a case?" He smiled slightly. "None." "Then why do this?" I asked. He answered instantly. "Control." There was again. Control. "She's testing you," he said, "seeing if you'll cave." And that's when it clicked. She'd probably done this before. Pushed people around with threats and paperwork until they folded. Paid up. Joined. Stayed quiet. But I wasn't doing that. Not after working 10 years to afford that land. The next few months were nothing but paperwork. Emails. Calls. Meetings. I learned more about property law than I ever wanted to. Every weekend at the cabin, I wasn't relaxing. I was documenting. Photos. Permits. Measurements. Evidence. Meanwhile, Lorraine escalated. She started showing up in person. One afternoon, I was sanding the porch when I heard heels clicking against gravel. I turned. There she was. Perfect hair. Cream-colored blazer. Clipboard in hand. Like a suburban prosecutor. "Mr. Harper," she announced loudly, as if we were already in court. "Can I help you?" I asked calmly. She scanned the cabin like it offended her. "This structure is out of compliance with community aesthetics." I blinked. "You mean would..." "Our community has standards." "I'm not in your community." She stepped closer. "You're impacting property values." I laughed. With a tiny cabin in the woods? Her jaw tightened. You're being difficult. I lowered my voice. No, I'm being lawful. She stared at me for a long moment, then said quietly, You'll regret this, and turned away. That night, I barely slept. Not because I was afraid of her, but because I was starting to understand how far she'd go. The court date was set for early fall, about 3 weeks before that. Rumors started circulating. Whispers. Avoidance. Some neighbors kept their distance. Others quietly supported me. Frank brought beer one evening and sat on the porch. She's scared, he said. Of what? I asked. Of losing. I wasn't so sure. Court day came fast. Gray sky. Light rain. Cold coffee in my thermos. Thomas met me outside the courthouse. Ready, he asked. As I'll ever be. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Neighbors. Locals. Even a reporter from a small-town blog. Lorraine sat front row. Posture perfect. Thick binder on her lap. She looked smug, confident, like she'd already won. When she saw me, she smiled, not friendly, but predatory. The judge entered. Judge Malcolm Hayes. Late 60s. Silver hair. Tired eyes. Zero patience for nonsense. Lorraine's lawyer went first. Young, cocky, talking fast, throwing around big words about harmony and responsibility. Lorraine nodded dramatically the entire time. Then she testified. Walked up like she was accepting an award. My mission, she said, has always been protect our neighborhood. She painted me as a reckless outsider. He refuses to cooperate. He ignores standards. He threatens harmony. Then she looked straight at me. He only cares about himself. That part hurt, because it wasn't true. I cared. I just refused to be controlled. When she finished, she sat down like a queen. Then Thomas stood, adjusted his glasses, spoke calmly. Your Honor, this is not a complicated case. He placed a map on the board. This is Willow Creek Estates. This is Mr. Harper's property. 2 points. Clear separation. 2 jurisdictions. He presented deeds, permits, county records, tax receipts, one by one. Lorraine's smile faded. Judge Hayes leaned forward, flipping pages. The room went silent. Finally, he looked up. Ms. Whitmore. Yes, Your Honor. You're asking me to force a citizen into a private organization with no authority over his land? Yes. He stared. On what legal basis? She hesitated. Our community charter, which does not apply, he cut in. She swallowed. But it's what we've always done. That was it. The sentence that exposed everything. Judge Hayes rubbed his temples. This court does not enforce tradition. It enforces law. He leaned back. The silence that followed felt heavy. Dangerous. Judge Hayes studied her. Do you understand what you're asking? She nodded quickly. I'm protecting the community. No, he said. You're attempting to override property law. She stammered. I just want what's fair. Thomas leaned over and whispered, Watch. Judge Hayes held up documents. This deed is valid. These permits are valid. These tax records are valid. He set them down neatly. Your claim is not. Lorraine's face went pale. But he's right there, she said, pointing at me. He benefits from our roads, paid by county taxes. The judge interrupted, which he pays. A few people chuckled. Lorraine glared. Her lawyer whispered urgently. She waved him off. This isn't right, she snapped. He's getting away with it. That's when I understood. This was never about rules. It was about losing. Judge Hayes straightened. Ms. Whitmore, you have repeatedly sent threatening notices, imposed unauthorized fines, and filed a baseless lawsuit. He paused. That is harassment. The word echoed. Her confidence cracked. I was just doing my job. You abuse your position, he replied. Her lawyer stood. Objection! Sit down. Judge Hayes snapped. The room froze. This lawsuit is frivolous. Bang. Gavel. Dismissed. Relief hit me like air after drowning. But he wasn't finished. Furthermore, this court finds you knowingly misused a legal system to intimidate a private citizen. Lorraine shook her head. No, bailiff. Judge Hayes said calmly, "Initiate contempt proceedings." The word landed like thunder. The bailiff stood. "What are you doing?" Lorraine cried. "This is insane." No one helped her. Her binder slipped, paper scattering. Years of control collapsing in seconds. "Please stand," the bailiff said. "I didn't do anything wrong," she whispered, but stood anyway. When the cuffs clicked, the sound was sharp. "Final." She gasped. "This is a mistake." Judge Hayes didn't respond. They let her out, dignity gone. The courtroom erupted. Whispers, gasps, a few claps cut short. Frank gave me a small thumbs up. I just sat there, stunned. Thomas smiled. "Told you," he said. Outside, the rain had stopped. Sunlight broke through clouds. Over the next weeks, everything unraveled. Blogs ran stories. Board members resigned. Audits exposed years of intimidation and abuse. Lorraine vanished. I finished my cabin, built a fire pit, planted trees. Sometimes I sit there at sunset thinking how close I came to folding. Power only works when people accept it. So tell me, what would you have done? Fought or folded? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them all.